Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, the man who rules the world, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Historical Men in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Historical Men in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Historical Men in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about occultist Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley was an occultist who created the religion of Thelema and identified himself as a prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus in the early 20th century. And this quest to be the one who would guide humanity into the Aeon of Horus put Aleister Crowley on the road to becoming a man in crisis ever since he was about 11 years old. Now, Aleister Crowley was originally born Edward Alexander Crowley in 1875, and he basically was put on that road to becoming a man in crisis at 11 years old due to the dysfunctional foundation that was established for him by his wealthy parents. Now, Edward Alexander Crowley basically was raised by two wealthy parents who really were not in his life actively. No, what they wanted to do was take this son and put him into these private schools and thought that the private schools would go out here and raise their child to become a healthy Christian man. And at 8 years old, they sent Edward Alexander Crowley to H.T. Habersham's evangelical Christian boarding school in Hastings, and then to Ebor Preparatory School in Cambridge, which was run by the Reverend Henry Darcy Champney. And this whole mistake to send this child to these private boarding schools put Edward Alexander Crowley on a road to being a man in crisis, because in those early years, a child needs to be with their mother and father, and they need to be with their mother and father to learn how to bond with their mother, and that allows them to connect to people, one, and they have to be with their father to learn about the structure of God's order and learn the structure of being a part of a family, because as they are seeing their parents model this behavior, the mother teaches them respect for male authority and male authority figures, and the father teaches them how to work within the structure of society. Unfortunately, because Edward Alexander Crowley's parents basically were more interested in pushing their religious agenda, they basically abandoned their son to this whole private boarding school system, and that boarding school system was not really structured to meet the emotional needs of Edward Alexander Crowley, and that basically wound up with him not getting the proper development as related to him being nurtured by his parents. Now, this whole situation is ironic because, again, these religious parents wanted to make a son who would be a servant of God. Unfortunately, they wound up making their son into a twofold child of hell, as related to what Jesus said in the gospel, because what happened with Aleister Crowley is, instead of him looking to follow in the footsteps of his father and be what he thought to be a steward of God, he decided to go on a different direction, and that started in March of 1887 when Edward Alexander Crowley found out that his father died of tongue cancer. And when he found out that his father died of tongue cancer, the man who he thought was his hero and his friend, he started to turn against and rebel, because partially due to him entering into adolescence, and him entering into adolescence without a father there to give him guidance during that time, basically started putting him further down the road to becoming a man in crisis, because he began to rebel and start to behave in school. And this basically created a situation where he started to turn on religion after he was harshly punished by Reverend Henry Darcy Champney. And this abuse, as in his eyes, basically wound up making him look to start turning against the fundamentalist religion he was a part of, because he was never taught to respect male authority or male authority figures from his father, and instead what he looked to do was start rebelling against against the family, and also started to look to rebel against the religion. And even though he had inherited a third of his father's wealth, he was again on this road to walking away from his father's ideals. And even though he had issues with this Reverend Henry Darcy Champney, this also again created issues with his development as related to respecting male authority, and with him being a religious authority figure. I believe that this was what motivated him to look to rebel against the Christian religion, because this Christian authority figure he believed was abusing him with his sadism, and led to him basically looking at the religion as related to the Christian religion being one that was looking to try to put power over him. And again, he was looking to take his power. And as he looked to take his power, he started to attend other private schools like the Malvern College and the Tonbridge School, which he basically would despise these schools. And he despised these schools because he really despised being under male authority and male authority figures, and really started to have issues with God, the ultimate male authority figure, and became more skeptical of Christianity, pointing out what he thought were biblical inconsistencies to his religious teachers, and then started to rebel against the morality of the Christian religion by smoking, masturbating, and having sex with prostitutes from whom he contracted gonorrhea, and then started to explore things like chemistry, poetry, and mountain climbing, and then decided to go to other schools, where he went to do a 3-year course at the Trinity College in Cambridge, and then eventually started to explore mysticism. And as he started to explore mysticism, he continued to go out here and participate in entering a place I call the secret world. Now, with beta males, when they don't feel secure about their foundations in manhood and masculinity, they don't live in our real world. No, they enter a place I call the secret world. And in that secret world, they start to explore a place where they feel secure and safe about expressing their natural masculinity and natural sexuality. And this is where Edward Alexander Crowley became Aleister Crowley, and started to explore the world of sexual deviancy, started to explore the world of sexual deviancy by continuing to frequent prostitutes and have lots of different sexual relations, catching more venereal diseases like syphilis, and also participating in sodomite behavior, continuing to start to explore again sexual deviancy. And then as he started to explore sexual deviancy, he then started to enter into the world of mysticism, and entered the world of mysticism as he was exploring the sexual deviancy. And this allowed him to start entering into the world of occult. And as he entered the world of occult, what he did was start exploring into things like black magic and things like different things as related to different sorts of mysticism. And this basically led to him entering an era he called the Golden Dawn. And that's where he started to again further explore this era of mysticism and explore things like witchcraft and things like that. He started to study Buddhism and different things as he traveled the world on his father's money. I mean, he did some mountain climbing and other things, but as he started to explore these things, he started to go into this whole world of this occult, again just looking to have these continued sexual experiences, exploring ceremonial magic, and basically again participating in all sorts of just disturbing behaviors. Had a marriage, and then as he was out here, he married Rose Edith Carey in a marriage of convenience to prevent her from entering an arranged marriage. But then, basically, again, he wasn't really caring about that marriage. He was just out here, doing what he was, exploring things before he eventually developed the religion of Thelema as related to things, and entered into this talking about how he was going to be a part of the whole religion of Thelema, and talking about he was going to be the guy who was the prophet entrusted in taking us into the Aeon of Horus. But when I look at him talking about exploring this whole Thelema religion and talking about being the one who was trusted by Horus, I basically see him as basically looking to further rebel and looking to gain power under the system of white supremacy by using the Heliopolitan religion of the Egyptian gods, and talking about how this equinox of the gods had come. But again, this was all about him being about getting power and control over people as related to his religion, that he would be the one who would be the prophet over. So when I look at his whole Thelema religion, it's basically him in his rose-colored reality, basically transposing white supremacy onto this religion of black Egyptian gods, and looking to create this whole religion of Thelema under this book of the law that basically he wrote and published as related to him being a part of this Thelema religion. But what was really interesting to me was, as he was out here writing this book talking about this Thelema religion, he was also out here continuing to travel, and had a child named Lilith, ironically, because the name Lilith is the name of, as related to the Talmud, the first woman that Adam was given, but then refused to submit to him and eventually wound up becoming a demon. I just found that very interesting. And he continued to go out here looking to climb mountains, and then continued to write more books as related to this Thelema religion, and continued to go out here running this Thelema religion. And again, his inheritance was running out, and as he was out here looking to do things, he was continuing to explore witchcraft, and he was exploring witchcraft as he was addicted to drugs. So his ideals as related to religion were having him out here traveling and then getting on drugs, again, not really dealing with his issues as related to his father, and dealing with his issues as related to the reverend who basically, as he says, abused him. That was the foundation for him being a man in crisis, looking to walk away from the Most High God to walk to these false gods and explore sexual deviancy. And as he went out here, he basically went out here having different sexual relations, even though he was married, and it was just a facade, and really was out here again looking to explore this witchcraft and this deviancy, taking him further down the road to becoming more of a twofold child of hell, as he was exploring this witchcraft and sorcery, and again exploring all of this and creating another occult order, Oro Templi Orientis. And everything he was doing, again, was taking him further down the road to darkness, taking him down the road to becoming more and more twisted. And he's talking about sex magic and things like this. I mean, he was basically out here pushing these narratives as related to the occult, and still living a hand-to-mouth existence on donations as related to his religions. But he was still further down this road to darkness, and still on this road to darkness mainly because he basically learned all of this in an effort to rebel against the Christian religion, wanted to rebel against the Christian religion, sadly because his father taught him more about religion than God. And that's what happens to a lot of beta males when they have beta male fathers. The father is caught up in ideals but not connecting to people, and that's further what again exacerbated things as related to Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley continued to explore again more of the occult as his life went on, and then as he continued to explore more of this occult, again he was just basically someone who was becoming more dark and twisted, becoming more dark and twisted as related to exploring all of this occult, and that basically this quest to explore the occult put him further on the road to becoming more of a drug addict and having other issues. And he was basically, again, someone who was again caught up in his religion of Thelema, and even thought that, again, that he could teach people like Adolf Hitler his black magic and things like this. And again, when I look at Aleister Crowley, he basically is a man in was a man in crisis, a man in crisis that was on that road because, again, his parents wanted to make their son into this good Christian, but could not see how they basically put their son on the road to becoming a twofold child of hell, caught up in the world of the occult. And as he got caught up in the world of the occult, he went from a boy who was going to be on the road to salvation to one who was condemned to wind up on the road to hell. And what's really sad is that their good intentions put their son on a road to hell because they didn't give him that guidance early on. They were so caught up in religious rules that they didn't show their child the love that Jesus wants us to show each other. And that's the whole sad part about Aleister Crowley, because he did not receive the love and nurturing that a child is supposed to have in their early stages of development. Instead of him connecting with Jesus in a relationship that would bring him closer to God, he wound up being taken off the road to God and the gospel, which was the good news that would give him hope, and taken down the road to darkness, because as he started to explore the occult, what he didn't understand was that he was being put on a road to hell, and put on a road to hell because when it comes to the word of God, it clearly states that sorcerers and idolaters will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's the great irony here. He wanted to usher in this whole age of these Heliopolitan gods, which were basically false gods as it was, because as he talked about ushering in this aeon of Horus, we never got to see that aeon ever happen in this world. No, Aleister Crowley wound up dying on December 1st of 1947 at 72 years old, and never got to be that prophet who guided humanity into the aeon of Horus. No, it never happened, because Aleister Crowley basically was caught up in delusions in his rose-colored reality, exploring all sorts of satanic stuff. And as he explored all this satanic stuff, it basically put him on a road to darkness. Now, a lot of people see him as an influential figure of the counterculture of the 1960s, but the whole thing is his whole religion of Thelema was basically debunked, and debunked because dude basically just, again, was caught up in his contempt for God, and caught up in his contempt for God because he didn't want to submit to male authority figures or be a part of God's order due to his issues with his father. And those issues with his father basically, and the teacher and the pastor of that private school basically put him on the road to becoming a man in crisis. And this man in crisis sadly never got to actualize himself spiritually. No, sadly, he was again put on a road to hell due to the good intentions of his parents that took a boy who they thought was going to be a perfect son and turned him into a man in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to beta males winding up on this road to dysfunction, and how to prevent that boy from becoming a man in crisis, you can pick up The Man Crisis on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation for a minimum of $15 to the Cash App or the PayPal by clicking the link in the description box. And if I know something about that individual, I will make that video about that individual as a historical man in crisis. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, Dark Incubus, the goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get your copy of ISIS Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, A Steam Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.